Hello and welcome to Extreme Perspectives. This is a monthly podcast created by the Sense Network to bring you conversations with people who see things differently and think differently. This podcast is for people who want to expand their mind and develop their creative intelligence. I'm your host, Jeremy Brown. For 20 years, I've been seeking out people from the edges of culture, the creators, outliers, misfits, rebels, and the crazy ones. People who want to change things and push the human race forward. In this episode of Extreme Perspectives, I speak with outlier, doctor, fasting advocate, and espresso lover Jerome Lay. Jerome is a medical doctor who sees himself as an artist as much as he is a scientist. By searching for the root causes rather than simply treating symptoms, his patients get the holistic care they need. Together, we examine the similarities between his empathic approach to patient care and the search for latent needs in breakthrough innovation. Hi, Jerome.
Hello, Jeremy.
How are you today?
I'm very good, thank you.
Excellent. I'm so pleased you can join us. Where have you joined us from today?
I'm here in Überlingen, Germany, close to the Constance Lake.
How very nice. And what a lovely lake that is too.
It is true. It's a beautiful area.
Well, Jerome, as I think you know, I always like to open these conversations with my favourite question. Are you an outlier, a misfit, a rebel, or a crazy one?
I'm prepared, and I really thought a lot about that question, and it's really interesting thinking about it. In the end, I came to the conclusion, in specific fields, probably I am an outlier. I'm thinking differently and doing things a little bit differently, but in others I'm quite, I would say, very adapted. Of course, it's more the field of medicine where I'm specialized in, where I think I'm an outlier.
Excellent. Well, that's what the Extreme Perspectives podcast is all about. So maybe you could just tell me a little bit more about your views on the outsides of medicine, or I believe you refer to your particular medicine as holistic medicine. Is that correct?
That is correct. I think the view came very early studying medicine, because there you get, at the university, of course, you get a big catalog of subjects that you need to learn, and you need to learn many things by heart. And at some point you realize that it is not enough. You always get to the point where you don't know the cause of illnesses, of diseases, and then you think, is the approach correct? And is the treatment correct? And then I already started doing, I would say, complementary medicine besides my studies. And with this part studying besides my classic studies, I think I developed a view on medicine that is more holistic, that is trying to get to the source of diseases, which I find much more fulfilling. And then, of course, starting to work in the fields of medicine, you realize, especially in a hospital, that treating symptoms is, of course, good and you can help people, but it's not going far enough. So I try to find a field where you can go to the sources of and the cause of being ill, and to help people in a different way.
Tell us a little bit about sort of how you go about this, how you might sort of say, when a patient comes to you, how do you go about sort of understanding what's going on for them?
Usually patients present themselves having already a diagnosis, or they have specific symptoms like back pain or hypertension or obesity. So the first thing is not only to see what the symptom is, but to get to know the person and to see what's the social context. Is the person stressed? What are the other illnesses, of course? What has already been examined? Are there already any results that he could show me? So to make actually a good picture of the person sitting in front of me. And that is also to talk about, if necessary, about the childhood, about partnership, about the job, is it a stressed person, about the dental health, about the nutrition, the alimentation that he's having, about the physical exercise that he's doing. And so to get a picture of the person, and not only a symptom, but of the whole person, in order to put it in a context. If you have the context, then you can think about what what might be, well, the cause of the person getting obese or having hypertension, and then to see what can you change, or what can you teach the person in order to change the style of life to treat not only the symptom but the cause. And in the end, well, that would be the best case to heal the person, although that's a very high goal. But the first things should be to at least reach some kind of well-being in the end.
That's great. And one of the things that we've talked about in the past as a part of this treatment is fasting, and which is, you know, an increasingly popular topic for people to talk about. Do you see that as a valuable thing in fitting in with, you know, or how do you see fasting fitting into how you treat people, or what's your wider view on that?
I think fasting is one of the best therapies you could have. I mean, therefore, I'm working in a fasting clinic, by the way, and I think it is a very good treatment. Not only fasting is, of course, you have a certain time where you stay below a specific number of calories, but there's much more than just not eating. There's, of course, a change in your metabolism. There's a decreasing in your blood pressure. There's a beneficial effect on your blood sugar metabolism. But there's also the side of that you have the chance to change perspective, to connect with yourself in a different way, to take a time out, to get a little distance and a different view on your own life, which I consider very important, especially nowadays when people usually don't take the time to do that. So fasting is, I think, very powerful.
Now, Jerome, I feel I've just jumped ahead talking about fasting, so I'm just going to skip back for a moment, because I think when you were just talking through how you look at a patient, there are direct parallels from your approach there to a lot of the approaches that we use in innovation. And certainly when we are looking at particular users of products or certain consumer groups, we take a very holistic view as well. We're looking at attitudes, behaviors, values, lifestyles, routines, habits, and often what we're looking for are unconnected, or maybe a better way of putting that is we're looking for those needs, or what are those fixes, you know, what are those problems that, you know, you might not necessarily see if you were looking directly at the problem itself. And often we refer to those as latent or unarticulated needs. And it strikes me that there's a direct parallel. You're searching for a very similar insight into your patients as to what we're searching for when we are, say, doing a deep dive with a new consumer group, and we are looking for opportunities to innovate. We are looking for ideas that could benefit many thousands of people in the work that we do. So I just thought it was interesting to draw a comparison, you know, for the world of medicine, or certainly holistic medicine is what we're talking about here, with the world of user research and design research and those deep dives into sort of understanding who we're designing for.
I believe there's a lot of parallels. There's also a person coming with a problem to another person, and then together with the person you try to work out a solution for that problem. And usually it is the way that the person coming, in that case the patient with a specific symptom or an illness, looking for a way to get better. And of course, one of the solution might be, well, you prescribe a pill, and then you get, well, the blood pressure lowers, but that's not the solution for the person. So I try to find out what might be the underlying cause, and if there's a different way than just taking pills to lower the blood pressure, to stay with that example. So I think there are, of course, parallels, and it's my job to find the cause or the source on the one hand, but also to make an outline of how it might be, of how the path towards well-being might go a different way, might go better. So I think there's a lot of parallels. I need to be very. It's like being a detective. I need to be creative because of course it has to fit individually. I cannot put there's general ideas of health, but in the end it needs to fit the individual person. I can't tell everybody to do 4 hours of yoga, eating vegan, and doing meditation 2 hours a day. That's probably a good idea, but in the end it doesn't fit everybody. So I need to find a way that fits the person if I really want to help the person.
So would you describe what you do as an art or a science?
It can be an art. If you really want to help the person, it needs to be an art because you need to work together with the person. You need to communicate very well. You need to be very open-minded and to make yourself thoughts. And you need knowledge and experience. And putting all that together, I think it is an art. And it's a progress. You can only grow. And with experience, I think it's getting better and better.
Well, I think there's another word that we use as well when you talk about those conversations, a word that gets used a lot now in the world of innovation is empathy. And that's really what you're trying to develop, to better understand the person that you are treating and we are designing for.
Empathy is, I think, one of the most important parts in my job. If you want to help another person, you need to try and put yourself into the person's position and to feel what the problem might be. Then you can find a way maybe to help the person.
Well, that's great to hear, because so often it feels like sometimes medical world is about managing numbers and about managing risk, and it's very little about treating the person. It's about treating the thing. What would you say makes a good doctor?
Probably it is that a good doctor is a person, first of all, who wants to help another person. I think that's an important thing in the first place. But then it goes on. Of course, the doctor needs to have knowledge and then to be empathetic. I think that those are the key elements. And then what I also consider important, the doctor needs to be open-minded and not to have specific ideas that things have to go a specific way, but to be open-minded, to also try out new ways, or that if you know some therapies, because every doctor has a specific kind of education. So of course you have your tools, but sometimes the tools do not fit to an individual person. So you need to find a new tool, for example, and for that you need to be open-minded. And what I think is also very important, you need to be on one height like the patient. You're not in a different position, which I consider very important. So you're like a person that accompanies another person and tries to find a way together. I think that's very important, and not to be like the person directing the other person.
Yeah, I mean, as a team at Sense Worldwide, we talk about this a lot. I think it's about meeting people where they are and taking them by the hand, as opposed to sort of pushing them into places they're not sure about. You do that together, and you have to work in partnership, and you work as one, as opposed to someone who knows better than the other person. You go on that journey together.
It's very important. In the end, it's the other person that wants help, and it's the other person that needs to take his own responsibility, and it's the other person that goes that way and that has the therapy. So it is very important, of course, to see that, and for that you need to see yourself as a person just accompanying another person.
I just want to slightly change direction now, and I'd be intrigued to know a little bit more about sort of your journey through life, your creative journey, if you like, on what led you to actually becoming involved in holistic medicine and becoming a doctor in the first place.
Honestly, I also asked myself how I'm really happy that I took the path of holistic medicine and tried to keep my mind open. It is being at a university that is very like in a school. Studying medicine is really you get information and you need to learn those information. I think it silences a little bit creative thinking and outside of the box thinking. So I was happy to directly go a path besides the university, which helped me to have a different approach on how diseases or illnesses appear. And so it was already during university that I had different courses besides. And then I had a very classic education. I was in a hospital. Specialized in internal medicine, so I had the classic education, which was about 2 years. And then I changed because I didn't like just treating symptoms. In internal medicine, you treat many elderly people, and it is on the one hand frustrating because you really only treat symptoms, and so people come to the hospital, they leave the hospital, they come back to the hospital, and it is like turning around yourself, and it's not feeling like really helping somebody. So you're just working or functioning in a system. I wanted to go out of that, so I changed hospitals and I switched to a hospital where they have integrative medicine, which is a combination of naturopathic medicine and classic traditional medicine, where I learned many things, and I learned the approach of holistic thinking. I had many courses besides, and that was like a jumping, I don't know if that's an English word, like a jumping device into the world of holistic medicine and naturopathic medicine. And then I was finished. I was doing my exam for the internal medical doctor. And then I opened my own practice, where actually I did no classic medicine at all, but only the naturopathic medicine, only the holistic approach, which was very, very interesting. That was really I was one person in my own rooms and treating people really only with the idea of treating them with a naturopathic approach, which is very interesting. But I needed, that was because of COVID actually. I was just building up my own practice, and because of COVID, numbers of patients decreased, although I was still building up. So I needed parallelly to work in a general practitioner's practice, and then I switched 100% to that place because it didn't work out politically with the house I was working in, which I also learned afterwards that it was a very good idea, because it was for me in that house very interesting, and I learned many things, but it wasn't open-minded enough, so that it was like the other direction. It's like it's both sides. You can have the classic medicine that is too narrow-minded, but also the naturopathic medicine that is too narrow-minded. So actually, in looking back, I'm quite happy to have left the place and working in a general practitioner's place. And I was there for 1 year until a new possibility opened up in a clinic where fasting actually is the main part, but this is in a program where we have a holistic approach. So actually that's the place where really I feel almost at home, because I can live my ideas. I have enough time for the patients, which is very important. I can structure my treatment as I want, and so it is actually the place where at the moment I feel like arrived.
Fantastic. For those people who are listening and may not be familiar with fasting, how would you best describe, or how would you introduce someone to the concept of fasting if they've heard it but didn't really know what it was about or what the benefits about? Because it's not just about not eating.
Exactly. No, there's much more, and actually it's a very good question. Fasting for me is, well, if you just have the structure, it is really that you stay below 300 kilocalories a day, drink a lot of water. The calories that you have as an intake are in forms of vegetable soups or vegetables of a very good quality. But there's more than just staying below 300 kilocalories. There's also the fact of doing physical exercise. There's the fact of resting, of even meditating. So there's many things coming together, which I consider as important when fasting. So it is not just not eating, like you say, but there's much more to it. And that's also why the effect is much more than only on your metabolism, but there's also an effect on your thinking, on your perspective, which I consider even one of the most important effects of fasting, because you have a change of perspective when you start eating again. It's very interesting having that feeling that you have a distance to your own life and see things differently, which can really help, well, from my point of view, to do things that are good for yourself. So you take things into your own hands which are healthy, and you're motivated to do things that are healthy, but also you connect to yourself, you see your needs that haven't been met maybe in the past, and so you're able to change things. So it's really like a very good starting point. Fasting can help do many things. Very interesting.
So way beyond, I mean, weight loss could be some people's goals, but as you say, it's that perspective. I think one of the ways that I've been thinking about it is many people take a holiday in the year, but that's not a holiday for their body. And the fasting is almost a holiday for your body, not your mind. And it can be a very profound and a sort of, it's more of an experiential thing as opposed to or spiritual thing as opposed to a physical thing, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense. It's like a cleansing, you can also say. We have so many influences coming from everywhere. It's information, it's pictures, it's noises, it's the nutrition. There's so many things, and you don't have the chance to cleanse yourself, or you don't take the time to do that. So fasting would be one of the possibilities to do that, and well, to, in the end, like you said, to have a holiday of your body and your mind. That's actually the idea. It's even proven that it is, of course, a holiday for your digestive system, for your cells, for the cells of your central nervous system, but also for your mind, if doing it correctly. So in a protected place, respecting times of rest, and not going on with the habits that you have.
I guess you fast. How often do you integrate fasting into your life?
I try to do it twice a year. It's not for very long periods. It's always between 5 and 7 days. It depends how I feel, because usually I do it during working, which is not the best idea. It's at best you would have free time to do fasting. I do it while working, which is good, but I don't have, I cannot profit at the fullest by resting during lunchtime, for example, by taking my time out as I wish. So, but I always feel the effect afterwards. For me, it is not to lose weight. For me, actually, it is to reconnect with myself and to be able to better cope with stress factors. That for me, that's the best effects that I feel from fasting for myself. So afterwards, I feel it's easier to deal with stress, with the daily structures that you have, and I feel like my ideas, things are easier. It's I feel I'm happier. So it's really like being lighter afterwards, but not only from your weight, but lighter in general.
And if anyone was considering fasting, what would your advice be? You've already said, find the right environment to do it. But what might be a good start? I think this is an absolutely fascinating area, and one that I personally understand the value of. So that's partly why I'm asking this question. That is, if anyone is curious enough, where might they start, or how could they start to learn more, and what might they expect from it?
Literature, you find a lot of literature about fasting in books, in the internet. I think if you want to do it correctly so that it is really a good experience, the best, of course, would be to be accompanied medically, or there's also people that have the education and that can follow you do with fasting. But to have the full experience, I think a place like we're a clinic, it makes it a lot easier because we take you by the hand and actually we tell you what to do. We make a program, so it is a lot easier. But you can structure it also at home. Maybe you can even find a person that helps you doing that has experience in fasting. There are local groups that offer fasting and do hikes, for example, hikes and fasting. I think if you're a healthy person without taking medication, a group like that wouldn't be any problem. If you have already diseases, illnesses, if you take medication, it would be good advice to at least be followed the first time medically, because there might always be questions that occur, symptoms that might occur during fasting that you cannot interpret, so it is always good to have a person to talk to. If you have the chance to be in a place where you can meditate, where you can be in nature, where you can be for yourself, where you can take distance from your daily life, that will be perfect.
And I've heard some remarkable effects of fasting. Have you experienced firsthand? I've heard of people's eyesight improving and all sorts of interesting claims. How much substance is to those claims, or have you experienced any of these things yourself with people that you've been working with?
For myself, unfortunately not. When fasting, I never had this high and this euphoria that people talk about. For me, it was more when I was refeeding again that I really felt lighter, that I felt something happened, change of perspective, better endurance when doing sports. But I didn't have this where you're like happy and thinks I have energy that I didn't have before. But I experienced many patients that were with me that will experience this positive effects of fasting. And that's really amazing to follow that. If you realize as a doctor there are things where actually you don't do anything, I just give them the advice to fast, and then it's not my work. In the end, it's their work. It's the self-healing power in their body. So I don't do nothing except accompanying them, and they tell about I don't have pain anymore. My blood pressure is good, and I don't take medication. I feel very good. I feel light. I have many people said that they have a fogginess that they didn't know when thinking, and that this fog disappears. It's like clearing up in your mind, which is also very interesting. So yes, it's many times that you can experience that when having guests fasting and being able to accompany them.
Because at a physiological level, I think the process is called ketosis, isn't it? That's what happens after a few days. Because I think, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but the carbohydrate sugars burn off. And I often think about it's like a dual fuel car. You've got petrol and electric, and you burn off the petrol, which is the carbohydrate sugars, and then you go onto your protein battery. Is that a really rubbish way of explaining it, or is that slightly helpful?
No, actually it is really good, although I wouldn't say the protein battery. But of course, at first the sugar battery, that's true, so that would be the petrol battery if you want. After you have glucogen levels or glucogen stocks, those are stocks of sugars in a complex form. They are used up in the first 18 to 24 hours of staying below 300 kilocalories roundabout. Actually, you could also say below 500 kilocalories. And afterwards, your body needs to find another source of energy. So it is true that in the beginning, in the phase of transition, the body takes protein in order to transform it into sugar, because there are some cells in your body, like the cells of the central nervous system, that only function on sugar. And afterwards, so that even keeps on during fasting, but afterwards you have the switch where you take fats in order to transform them into keto bodies, and those serve as energy source. So there is a switch, if you want, from petrol to electric. And when you work on electric during fasting, that's when you feel better, where you have the energy, where you don't feel hungry, where it is the first time it is really amazing because you know I haven't eaten and yet I don't feel hungry and still energetic. It's a very interesting feeling, because usually if you ask yourself how many times in your life didn't you have a single thing to eat in 24 hours? Probably there's not many days that you can name in your life. And then there's many days where you stay below 300 kilocalories and you feel good, which is very interesting. A very good experience.
And what else is happening in your body at that time? Because there is this regenerative element to what's happening in your body as well. As these things shut down, what's the physiology? What's actually what other things are going on in the system, or what do we understand today that what might be happening in the system?
Concerning the metabolic point of view, there's a change in the resistance of insulin. So you have, in the end, a better use of insulin, which is interesting for diabetic or pre-diabetic people, so that the insulin resistance is reduced. Blood pressure is reduced even after fasting. Continue having a stable level of blood pressure. Concerning the regenerative part, you have something called autophagy. So there's old cells that are, well, like eaten up by other cells that helps to, I would say, take out the rubbish, maybe, if that's a good picture. Fasting is, if you look into the longevity studies, fasting often is one of the elements mentioned.
And we know that Silicon Valley billionaires are obsessed with not just going into space, but living longer so they can enjoy their wealth longer. And the longevity studies now are getting a lot more press and a lot more attention around what we can do. So you're saying fasting is one of those primary activities that we could do to keep ourselves healthier and more vital for a longer period of time.
I really believe so. And it's even more than that. It helps you to stay energetic and to keep up with the modern structures, like I said, for example, stressful structures, and it really can help to keep a good performance. Fasting can be really a very powerful tool in that. It's interesting actually that it is coming more and more, but it is interesting that it hasn't been yet discovered more as a tool for that, because it is very easy. It's no sorcery. It's like I said, you don't, of course you have a preparation time, but then you stay below 300 kilocalories a day. That doesn't sound like magic, I guess, if I tell it like that. And in the end, it is not. It is quite easy, but it is easy and yet not so very known, or it is not in a routine of people's life.
Well, it's certainly not in the mainstream yet. I think I can see it almost accelerating into the mainstream, and it should be adopted. And I think that was my point earlier. We talk about going on holiday, but we don't have a word for doing this for our bodies. We MOT and we service our cars, and we look at the engines and we change the oil. But so I'm back to cars again. Maybe I should be talking about woodland and clearing out the dead wood so we can have regrowth. Maybe that's a more natural, better thing. But that is the point about fasting. It's entirely natural, and actually you don't have to pay a pharmaceutical company any money to do this, and that's possibly one of the reasons it's lost. But there has been in many cultures this fasting exists, but we seem to have maybe lost that in the West.
That is true. There's a lot, not only in the West, in many cultures there's fasting has been part of it, even in religion, as it is often stated, and still it is the knowledge is lost. Like actually there's many very interesting treatments in naturopathic medicine that were once en vogue, that were really powerful, and they got lost. And they are still very good because they have an effect on the regulative system of your body, and they help to trigger your self-healing powers. And they're very easy, actually, like fasting. It is. I really like things that are easy, actually, and that are helpful, and yet they are forgotten and they're not being used, which is nuts to understand.
Do you have examples of things that have been in vogue in the past or have been forgotten about that that you would be an advocate for?
There's, for instance, hydrotherapy. That was very much common with Sebastian Kneipp in Germany, but that has been more and more forgotten, and that is not in the modern treatments, in modern medicine. There's no part at all. In naturopathic medicine, some people really use it, and they say there can be very easy tools that you can reproduce at home to help yourself, but it could be a much bigger part of that.
And just to be clear, hydrotherapy is, and I think I might have done this myself this morning, is turning the shower to cold for at least 30 seconds and building up your resilience to very cold water. That's what you're talking about with hydrotherapy. It's that sort of cold water therapy on certain limbs of your body at certain times. Is that correct?
That's one of the examples. It's just water application, and the temperature is the key element in this, where you have effusions or a water treatment of cold water. It could also be alternating in temperature. It can be cold and warm, but that's the idea, just to have the stimulus, and then your body needs to react. That's always the idea of a naturopathic treatment, where you have a stimulus and then your body reacts on that. So it's very easy in the end. That what I really like about all those things is that when you're doing it, in best cases you really increase your well-being. The worst thing that can happen doing it regularly is that there's no change. So actually there's nothing to lose. It's very good.
And what are the upsides? What can some of the benefits of hydrotherapy be?
Since you're training your autonomous nervous system, the benefit can really be that you have an effect on your blood pressure, you have an effect on your metabolism, you have an effect on your stress resilience, you have an effect on your sleeping quality. So actually you have a very easy tool that can be very powerful. Name me a medication that is able to do all of those things at once. It's quite difficult to find such a substance. And well, the negative part is you need to do it, and you need to do it regularly. So that's actually the difficult part. So that's what makes naturopathic medicine for some people not so attractive, because they're forced to do things for themselves. There's not the doctor that gives them this one pill that solves everything.
Now, whilst you're revealing a few forgotten secrets, are there any other sort of good forgotten treatments that comes to mind aside from fasting and hydrotherapy?
Honestly, with those two things, I mean, if I explain them, I've already given many things that are very interesting, because with fasting, of course, comes the nutrition afterwards. So the nutrition plays a big role. That's very important. But if you do hydrotherapy, you think about the capacity of your body to regulate itself. If you then add on a daily basis some physical exercise, actually you're already pretty good. But of course there's other tools. I really like cupping, for instance, where you have these cups. You create suction, and then you put them on specific places of your body. You can do a cupping massage, but you can also do a classic cupping treatment, where the cup stays for 10 minutes on a specific part, where you also have a stimulus where your body is able to regulate on that, which is also very easy. If it is shown to you once, you can reproduce a cupping massage, for instance, at home, and help yourself with back pain, muscle tension, headaches. So actually there's a lot of symptoms that you know on a daily basis, well, hopefully not, but that are quite common, where you can help yourself. So actually with some hydrotherapy tools, with cupping and a proper nutrition, and fasting is one part of proper nutrition and according to me, you have a pretty good set of tools with which you can hold up your well-being and your health in best cases.
Well, thank you, Jerome. Did you always want to be a doctor? Did you want to be a doctor since you were a child?
Actually not. When I was a child, I wanted to be a top manager. That was what I was saying. I didn't know what it was. I just thought that would be a good idea. I had the picture of traveling around and doing fancy stuff. And actually then I was first after my Abitur. That's finishing school. You have Abitur in the end, and then you can go to university. I was studying business administration and languages, and then I realized, no, that's not for me. I'm pretty chaotic.
What languages were you studying?
English and French, and I also had Chinese and Spanish. So that's when I actually realized that I like languages, and then I wanted to do languages. So I wanted to study Chinese and Russian, but then I realized, well, what can I do with only languages? I will still end up doing business administration, I thought. So then I choose to do medicine, which was actually the idea I didn't have a better idea. So I thought medicine is probably one of the fields where you have all of the subject that you might know, physics and biology, and you study the human, you have psychology. So actually it's a very huge field, and you can do many things with medicine. So actually that was my choice in the end. So I studied medicine. And now I'm very happy having studied medicine. It's still very interesting. It's you can learn many things every day. So I'm very happy having chosen that way.
Remarkable. What a journey. You didn't actually set out to do that. I think that's true of so many people who get very good in their field and become very knowledgeable. They had almost no intention of heading in that direction at all when they set out. That's part of the enjoyment of life, I guess. Now, just as we wrap up, I often ask a question about the Sense Network and how could the Sense Network help you in your work, or have you had any experiences with the Sense Network that you have particularly enjoyed?
The first contact I had with the Sense Network that I enjoyed a lot was with you. It was I unfortunately I didn't know about it beforehand, but then I of course I looked it up, and I had a look at what the Sense Network is doing, and I listened to some of the podcasts, and it was really interesting. I think it can help to keep an open mind, to follow stories, and to stay at a state where you say, I always can think differently, and maybe it, or I believe it can be very helpful to help other people. Actually, I was being able to see how you did with your fasting, which was very interesting, and then we got into a very interesting conversation. And then I said, which actually probably I shouldn't have said, but I said, well, you will see the first espresso that you will have after fasting is the best thing you can have. Then you're really, it's really kicking in. You feel that it is giving you a joy, and you feel energetic and powerful. And then I said, well, why not doing it just here while having conversations? So I got ourselves an espresso, which actually led to a very good conversation. It was we really did a very good connection together, and it was a very interesting exchange. I'm very happy to do my job because I consider it as an exchange with other people. So I'm always able to learn from other people, which I know I'm very privileged to have a job like this and to be able to learn from other people. And that was a very special moment for me, which I could share with you, Jeremy.
Well, thank you for sharing that, but most importantly, thank you for that espresso, because like you said, it was a pretty remarkable espresso. Of all the espressos in my life, I think that was the one that definitely put me somewhere completely different. And yeah, to be in your company and to be able to have that conversation straight off the back of it was amazing. But I completely agree with you. I think there's some real parallels in what we do, and I often say exactly what you've just said. It's a real privilege to do what we do. I mean, you get to meet so many different and diverse people from all over the world, and you get insight into their lives and their culture. And as do we at Sense Worldwide. And we are always, from every conversation we have, every interaction we have with the Sense Network, it is that mind expansion, and it's what gets us up in the morning. It's just learning more about our fellow human beings and the human condition, and how we deal with so much of the weirdness that goes on every day, whether it's the pandemic, or whether it's the politics, or whether it's just day-to-day family life, or how someone behaved when you're out in public. But I think that's one of the beautiful things of life and what we get to do. But I'm going to start sounding like I'm on that espresso again in your consulting rooms.
No, but it is beautifully said. I agree, and especially in times like this, the exchange and keeping a positive idea is very important, and to see that there's more than just the protection of an infection or politics, or there's much more than that, and I think it helps to link people and to get a feeling of being together.
Yeah, because we are all one. That's the thing that we know. Well, that's probably a very good place to leave things.
I think so, yeah.
Thank you, Jerome.
Well, thank you very much. It was my pleasure.
Thank you for listening to Extreme Perspectives, brought to you by Sense Worldwide. We'd love you to join this conversation using the hashtag Extreme Perspectives. If you enjoyed it, leave us a review. The Sense Network collaborates with many of the world's most innovative companies to help them be more innovative. Join us at thesensenetwork.com or get in touch via email hello@senseworldwide.com.